welcome to the Mindset Michele TV show. We're so super excited for you to be joining us for yet again another incredible episode. And today we have the extra special guest, Jay Hedley. Hello, Jay.
Hey, Michele, how you going?
It's so wonderful having you on the show. And for those of you that don't know Jay, as you can see by the wonderful image behind him, he is the co-founder of the Coaching Room, an organisation that helps senior executives and senior leaders with coaching. But coaching people tend to have a really fascinating and interesting background because they come from many different types of experiences in their background, and that is what makes them such rich and amazing coaches. Jay, do you want to share with people a little bit about who you are and how you came to be coaching today in your career?
Yep. So who I am, that's a big question, but I'll see if I can distill it into a nutshell. So my background was in telecommunications. I was a retail manager for AAPT, and found myself despondent in the corporate world, really. And we did a management program, and I'd heard of NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, previously, and one of the trainers was an NLP trainer who trained us, and I really liked her style and made a connection with her, ended up doing a course with her about a year later, and that just gave me, really, it created a roadmap for what I wanted to do, which was to become a coach. Even though I had no idea that's where I wanted to head. And so I left there and worked part-time for another organization, a small organization, 4 days a week as a sales director. They were an organizational employee survey company. And I did that for about 4 years while I built the coaching room, literally on the train going up to Sydney, and I lived in the Blue Mountains. So going backwards and forwards, I created the coaching room on the train and launched it, and then partnered with the other managing partner, Joseph Scott. We brought our two businesses together in 2007, and the coaching room's been, going and growing since then. And now we have a third managing partner, Madeline Robinson. And yeah, we coach, professional high performance people.
Wow, what an interesting background. And I'm fascinated by the, retail manager, sales director, these different types of roles that obviously were part of crafting who you were becoming at that time. Sure. In terms of dealing with people and working with people and having that people focus to the type of work that you do.
Yeah.
And then, the leading into the NLP part. What was it about the NLP part? I'm just curious. What was it about NLP that really interested you?
Well, it's the same thing. I was curious about what the human mind and how it worked, and people and how they worked. You picked up on that I'm very much a people person, and I was interested in how people tick. I like to watch people. I like to observe people. I like to understand people, and I sought to understand more about myself. And so what my biases were, what made me tick, what was holding me back from being the best version of myself. And NLP is really the developmental model, a communication model, but learning it develops you. So as you learn about how your mind works, how it's really the study of the process of subjectivity, how you subjectively process, then I learned about how then other people subjectively process, which is really what coaching is all about, being able to be a direct mirror that mirrors back what's actually happening, but maybe outside of the conscious awareness of the person who's processing.
Wonderful. And there's so much wonderful gold that we'll get into in a minute around outside of a person's consciousness. And I love how you were talking about how you subjectively process, and it is all subjective. Things happen, and then it's how we interpret them. But before we go into that, I'm interested with this great mastery, in effect, around people and how they think and the processes that they go through to think and feel. What is it for you yourself that today, what does success mean to you now?
So the word success itself is what's called a nominalization. And that means it's a verb, succeeding, which has been statically placed in a static form as a noun, but it's not a real noun, it's a pseudo noun. And so success doesn't actually exist. And so it's a process. And so what it means to me is that it's a process of learning and developing and having some wins and some losses. Failure is the fastest way we learn. And so the more we fail, the more we learn about what not to do. And so a really big part of the process of being successful or succeeding is actually stuffing things up. At the coaching room, we have a saying, which is go ugly early. Get it out the way, make all the mistakes up front so that you can learn really, really fast and grow much faster as well. And so for me, failing is essential. Actually, when I work with high-performance sporting teams, I teach them how to lose first rather than how to win. Because if they can integrate the learning from losing is where all the juice is. So all the magic is in what's going wrong. Is simply feedback. And so another presupposition of NLP is there's no failure, only feedback. And so it's the propensity to take in, integrate, and learn from that feedback that enables the more succeeding to occur.
I love that explanation, and thank you. I love that you're because people talk about life being a journey, so it makes sense, and I love that interpretation then of success being that journey, that process. So it's not a static point in time, like you so beautifully and eloquently shared. I'm also fascinated then, and this leads in nicely to the suggestions that you may have for people, because if your starting premise is that it's about failing quickly and failing and learning from those failures or what might go wrong quicker so that you can then build more success, what sorts of things do you help people to understand about, as you were saying, getting the gold and the nuggets out of failure so that they can translate that in their minds or in their behaviors or habits, how they can translate into that, well, that was a lesson that you learned from that experience that will help you learn to be more successful. What sort of suggestions do you have for people around that?
Well, I don't really have suggestions because, in coaching, we don't actually suggest anything. We're facilitators of what's true, what's really going on up the back of the mind that's driving the experience at the front of the mind. And so each human being's unique. And so each human being uniquely needs to find their own way with their personality structure, with their biases, with their beliefs, their values, their identity, and their thinking pattern biases. They've got to be able to find their own way of making different sense out of the world. You said before that we don't really deal directly with the world. We deal through our interpretation of it, and so we interpret the world, and the quality of that interpretation is the quality of our experience of the world. And so the problem, we have another saying, and that's the problem is never the problem. So the presenting problem for a person never ends up being the real problem. The real problem is how they're processing what they call the problem. And so we start with the problem out here in the real world. That could be that, you know, I can't identify what I'm doing wrong. It could be that, you know, people really piss me off. It could be that I'm not getting the results I want, et cetera, or you know, something's going on out here which isn't ideal. But as a coach, I'll ask, okay, so if that's happening out here, what meaning are you making in here about that out there? What do you believe about that? What do you value about that? Or what values are being violated? Or what do you think about that? Or what you know, how do you understand that? How do you make sense of that? And so as I ask questions that take people through their internal processing, that's where the real problem starts to reveal itself. So it could be in their beliefs. It could be in their values. It could be in their memories, the past. It could be in how they're projecting everything that's happening for them now into the future. And they're doing anxiety around stuff that hasn't happened yet, except it's happening in their mind. And so for every human being, awareness is curative. It came from a guy called Fritz Perls. That was his most famous saying. Awareness is curative. And that
so if I just try to recap then, because you're explaining so many wonderful and really important concepts there. So I just want to quickly recap. So what you're saying is that expanding on that, you know, it's not necessarily what happens, but how we interpret it. It can actually be the way that it then creates your experience of the world, as opposed to what necessarily actually happens. So that interpretation comes out of your values and beliefs, and the way that you're projecting possibly into the future, or remembering things from the past. So the way, or the suggestion that you have for people to work with that is this all happening to you, or what is happening in the exterior outside environment. That is then the way that can support you with helping you to then discover what your values, what your beliefs, and like a bit like a scientist. Would you describe it as being a bit like a scientist?
Scientist, is that what I heard?
Yeah, scientist.
Yeah, so the scientific part is the objectifying of what's happening for the person in their subjective reality. That's the scientific viewpoint, is to make object what's subject for the person. And so if I had a suggestion, or I don't really, but if I did have a suggestion, it would be to make object what you're subject to. And so that's the purpose of a coach, is to objectify the subjectivity, make conscious what's unconscious, and be the mirror of reflection for that, so the person can see and understand and start to quality check their thinking, not what they think, but how they think. We don't give feedback on content, what they think. We give feedback on context, process, and structure of how they think.
I really love, because you're so simplified and so clear for people, how a coach works and how a coach helps people to understand. And I love that distinction you made, that you're actually not challenging, in a sense, you know. And if I use an example, I had a car accident and my car got smashed in the front. You're not challenging that a physical, actual event that happened, helping people then process that event. What were your values, thoughts, this, that? What did you even unconsciously then make conscious about that? The actual situation happened. That's a given. But the rest of it, helping people to understand.
Right.
Do you want to share how people can perhaps, going back to that, I loved how we started with that fail. You know, people might go, oh, I'm a failure, I'm, you know, a bad driver or whatever, in this example. How you help people then go, well, you spent 99 days driving a car without an accident, and then one day had an accident. So is that the sort of thing that you may help people to contextualize it?
We'll ask them about what are they referencing when they're thinking about the accident, and how's the accident a problem for them. So we don't assume that the problem's the problem. We ask, how's it a problem? How's it a problem for you specifically?
Wonderful. So in that way, you're again using, say, and just the example I've made up now, but the example of if there's a car accident, which, like you were saying earlier, could be the problem that they arrive with or come in firstly with, but you're helping them through that questioning about the values and beliefs and helping them to understand and build their own levels of awareness around it, to the car having an accident because the insurance, etc., and nobody was physically hurt. So that would be, so the real problem may be something else completely, and you're helping them to uncover that.
Well, let me give you an example. So let's say that actually happened, and the person is focused on the worst case scenario of that, and what it means financially, and what it means relationally, and what it means socially, and they're processing all of that, and then they're projecting all of that into the future, and they're projecting that the future is going to be difficult for themselves. They're creating now a mind-body emotional state of pessimism within their body, and that pessimism means that they're chatting to themselves in their head constantly about how hard this is going to be, and how tough and how painful, etc. And yet none of it's actually happened yet.
I love that. I love that whole when we talk about self-talk, and that if you're going to be doing self-talk, why not be the hero or be successful in that talk, as opposed to, like you're talking about, and using a great example about how in that situation you could start to become pessimistic or program in some pessimism for the future.
Yeah. More than that, we'll inquire into the positive intention of the self-talk itself.
Do you want to say a little bit more about the positive intention there?
Well, self-talk is what's called superego from a psychological perspective. And superego it doesn't come online until we're about 7 years of age, 6 or 7, thereabouts, depending on the maturity of the person. But we take one of our parents or both of our parents' moral compass and we ingest it. And then we turn their voices into our voice. And the intention for doing that developmentally is to grow ourselves up, is to parent ourselves so that we become an individuated human being as part of the individuation process. But nobody tells us that. And so we don't ever realize that I'm not a child anymore. I don't need parenting. And so when we ask what's the positive intention, most of it is motivation. Most of it, not all of it, but most of it is the self-talk's how I motivate myself. Then we ask, is it working? Is it actually motivating you, this self-talk that you're engaging in? And most people will go, no, it's not. So as a strategy, is it getting what you intended to get? No, it's not. Then is it time to jettison the strategy itself and maybe create a new and more mature version than a 7-year-old's strategy? And so bringing light to the human processing and the positive intention, because we don't do anything without a positive intention, behind that enables people to really start to see, do I need to process this way any longer? Is it really serving me? Is it allowing me my best?
Yeah, I love what you're talking about the still processing things from the parent view of the world, if you like, and then that voice or that way of processing it. We work with quite a few people, especially around money and around beliefs around money,
right?
And that intergenerational belief system that people may not even recognize, that if they're getting to a success level or a success point in their careers, they can then start to self-sabotage because they've carried over many of the belief systems, not knowingly, but unknowingly carried this over. Yeah, and it's fascinating, isn't it? there's so many ways that the way that we, in a sense, are programmed, and that's what NLP helps to do, is to help identify the program, pick out the parts that you would like to keep, and strengthen the parts you want to develop. But it's amazing. What is it you think that, in terms of the brain and the processing and the neuroplasticity about creating new habits and behaviors, what is it that excites you the most about all of that?
That we have got unlimited potential, that as a human being, no matter where we're at in our development, we have unlimited human potential. There's where, you know, if you look at the human race, it's developing outside of any individual as a race. It's not actually, your development isn't actually in your own hands. It seems like it is, but it isn't. And so we can't control our development. What we can do is optimize the conditions for your organic development to occur. It's already occurring without you. You know, it's like, you know, I say to people, show me your fingernails. Show me your fingernails, Michele. Stop them growing. Yeah. So even in your death, your fingernails will still grow.
It is funny how it's like breathing, you know, like hold your breath. If you said to somebody, hold your breath, there's only a certain amount of time before their conscious goes to sleep when they pass out, and they start breathing again, because there's, like the fingernails, there's parts of us as human beings that in that automated pattern, right, whether we consciously try to choose to do something or not, it continues on. And that's where I love this brain stuff, because similar to what you were saying about the fingernails, if I said to you, stop creating new brain neuroplasticity, if you pick up the pen with the left hand instead of the right, it creates new neuroplasticity. And if I said to you, do that new behavior but stop creating that new neuroplasticity, you wouldn't be able to do that. It's like the fingernails, and that wonderful thing you were saying about the human race evolving and all of us growing and developing together.
Yeah,
it's just something that's happening, and
it is.
We can't stop it. It's very exciting, isn't it?
It is, and you know, Abraham Maslow really pointed to it, and you know, he said we're wired for self-actualization. We're wired to actualize our potential, and so it's not what do we need to do to achieve that potential. It's what do we need to stop doing that's holding our potential back, because our personality, which is our programming, our conditioning, gets in the way with its beliefs, its values, its identity structures, its cognitive biases, etc. It gets in the way and stops us from developing. So it's not so much what do you need to do, it's what do you need to stop doing that really matters. And so you know, what excites me is the unlimited potential of being a human being that is evolving outside, and you know, everything else, the flora, the fauna on our planet, and you know, across the universe, etc., is constantly evolving. It's expanding, which is evolution. It's happening without us. So you don't need to worry about that. What you need to focus on is optimizing the conditions, and that is bringing a mirror to yourself, you know, and identifying how you're holding yourself back, so that you can stop doing that and allow your system to do what it's already doing. It'll accelerate beyond your wildest dreams. It'll accelerate, you know, beyond what you can imagine, because the potential exists in your humanity. You were born into the potential. You know, you already won human lotto. You don't need to prove yourself now as a human being.
And I love this really fabulously optimistic tone around, you know, you already inherently have this drive, like the fingernails, to self-actualize, to be successful, to do all the things that will create a happy and joyful and successful life. And I'm always reminded about the quote around asking Michelangelo, how did you carve David out of the stone? And his response being, I just chipped away everything that wasn't David.
Right.
And in a similar way, when you're talking about stopping the things that aren't helping you, releasing the beliefs and the values that aren't helping you. So using that lens or that awareness to move things out of the way so that you can keep being successful and you can keep growing and developing, because you're going to keep growing and developing. And how much of that is a easier journey or flows more gently, and how much of that is more of a journey that can be a bit more difficult because of the values, beliefs that you hold around the journey, because it's going to happen anyway.
And yourself, around yourself as well, and the world, and your power, and others, and all the beliefs that you hold. But beliefs are necessary but not sufficient. So beliefs and values and identity structures are necessary. They're part of our culture, they're part of our society, they're part of being a human being. We grow into them. And so they're necessary, but at a certain point in your development, your beliefs, your values, your identity structure, your personality, your biases will absolutely begin to hold you back. It's a bit like using a metaphor, a greenhouse. A greenhouse, the purpose of a greenhouse is to help plants grow by providing a stable environment for that growth to happen. But there's going to, if you plant an oak tree in a greenhouse, there's going to come a point where the oak tree is going to outgrow the greenhouse. And if you don't remove the greenhouse, it can't reach its potential. Beliefs and values are the same thing. They're there to grow you up. But as you grow up, you need to dismantle them and look at where they're holding you back and pull them apart. And as you do that, you don't need to create new beliefs, because they're scaffolding around you that simultaneously allow you to grow and develop, but simultaneously they thwart your growth and development. So going beyond the personality, going beyond beliefs, they're generalizations, going beyond values, also generalizations, to actually be in the real world and to test everything for yourself rather than bringing beliefs or values or identity structures to it. Actually test things in reality will help you grow much faster than holding on to structures about reality. Being in reality enables your potential to accelerate massively.
What an amazing, and I feel like we could keep talking through this topic for hours and hours. The message I heard then was about keep moving, keep going, keep trying, even if you're failing or winning or whatever. But the message about keeping going, because the keeping going and keeping learning and growing, you're then going to keep working out how much of this was values and beliefs and constructs that serve me to this point, but from this point forward, I need to let them go.
Yeah, they're necessary, but they're not sufficient for your ultimate evolution. They're not going to allow you to grow beyond them. And so as you identify them and you start to challenge those beliefs within yourself and then dismantle those beliefs, then what's left is you. And you get to find out who you are without those, who you are without the scaffolding. And now you're getting to know yourself. You're optimizing the conditions for true evolution and true acceleration.
And this is all, like I said, I could talk about, this is one of my favorite areas, talking about that growth and evolution and self-actualization and moving on. But Jay, if people did want to reach out to you and hear some more about this or connect about the coaching room, what's the best way to get hold of you?
Thecoachingroom.com.au, our website, is the easiest way to see what it is we do, how we do it, what we're about, and make contact with us there.
Wonderful. And final point for today. If I was to ask you if you were to give your younger self some advice or insights, what might that advice be?
It would be grow up and wake up. So first, wake up to the structures of personality that are getting in the way and holding you back. And then as you wake up to them, actively do the work of cleaning up so that you can start really growing up so that you can show up.
I love that. So that grow up, wake up, and then you're free in a sense to then show up more into your life. You have that awareness, and you're living in the now, like we started with. You're living in that moment. You're not kind of your energy and everything, and not pulled either way.
Well,
Jay,
people call it mindfulness. We call it less mind, mindlessness, not more mind.
Mindlessness. I love that. It's a wonderful way to look at it. The Buddhists I love as well because they talk about the detaching from the mind. Mindlessness though is quite good.
Fritz Perls had an awesome saying, and that was lose your mind and come to your senses.
Lose your mind and come to your senses. Well, Jay, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you again. It's been such an honour having you come on the show.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. And to all the viewers, thank you again for all the comments and suggestions and things that you're writing in and sharing with us about these incredible tips from the guests that we have on the show. But for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.